Yeah, hey, I guess we're in the sports panel, huh? We haven't heard of anything about this yet. I would just like to thank first of all the other panels that went before us. They did an amazing job, and all the moderators themselves, and all the people that are part of the keynote speakers. Amazing job, amazing job. But there's one thing they haven't heard yet, and it's about sports. I mean, there's a little tidbit here and there about fantasy football, or apparently Enrico's one of the teachers was playing football as well, so Deiontrez can relate to that. But here I'm just gonna introduce our two of our. Oh, what happened? I think one of our people left by accident. Hey, could you possibly give? There it is. There he is. Jim's right there. Yeah, so I'm just gonna introduce a little bit about myself. I'm Kishan Patel, and I've been in Flamingo for around a month and a half so far. So this is something big that I'm doing, and it couldn't be possible without the team themselves. But here we have two of the greatest professional athletes, two people that inspire me a lot. I mean, I've looked at their stories. I've looked at everything that they could possibly put on social media, LinkedIn. I mean, I can't even be blunt about how great you guys are. And so just to kick it off, could you possibly introduce yourselves and talk about a little bit about what kind of got you into finance, what kind of finance means to you as well? Deiontrez, could you go first for me?
Oh yeah, definitely. I just want to start off, right off the bat and just say, thank you, Kishan, for inviting me to speak at this panel. Financial is finances in general is a huge topic and uncomfortable topic for most. And like I said, I'm the type that wants to make a difference in anything I do and kind of be that role model as much as I can be and use my platform to inspire others. So thank you again for once again laying it out for me and giving me the opportunity. But yeah, just like you said, my name is Deiontrez Mount. I played 4 years in the NFL, and what kind of got me into finance is overall is you hear all the horror stories of guys blowing through their money, and as soon as they get into the NFL and making all these bad decisions, and I've always been that guy to go against the river, go against the grain, and I just kind of didn't want to go down that path. So that inspired me in itself to educate myself and to not go down that direction. So
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I mean, that's what actually we'll get into a little bit is kind of what professional athletes do after they retire or whatever. But regardless, Jim, go ahead and introduce yourself. I mean, man of the hour as well.
Well, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure to be here, and thank you for the invitation. Deiontrez, it's nice to meet you. Look forward to getting to know you better. Mine started, I think everybody's situation is different. I had the opportunity to go to college, and by the time I got on the tour, I was a little bit older than most of the folks who were on the tour. But I would say my financial background wasn't very strong at that point. I was the youngest of six, and so a lot of things were quote unquote taken care of for me. So I learned as best I could. While you're traveling, you learn a lot on the tour. You learn from your fellow players about how go about doing your business a little bit better. Teaching you about how to get flights at a better rate, work on hotels. There was a lot of talk about saving expenses because the expenses traveling around the world to play tennis are high. So knocking down expenses was a big one. Let's see, and then in terms of if you do get to the point where you're earning a living, that and tennis is a little bit different where you're traveling around quite a bit. You're sending the money back to one spot, and you got to have some people you can trust there, who can pay your bills and also look after it and help you start the investment process. So I was fortunate to have a knowledgeable family and trusted advisors who could help me while I was taking care of my primary business at the time, which was tennis. So
Right. Yeah.
so that's how I got started.
Yeah, and like when you're talking about little things make a huge difference. Just like saving on flights here and there. I mean, yeah, you save $100, but $100 can go a long way. You put it into anything, it could grow, right? So I mean, not just that, but I mean, just those other little things like hotels and things like that as well. And I'm sure Deiontrez can relate to it as well. But let's just try to start getting into like the question round of it. Um, so being a professional athlete, I mean, both of you guys are, and playing against those big time names like Jim, you played against Nadal or Federer, Deiontrez, you played against major teams like, I mean, the Patriots or anybody, you name it, right? I mean, you've seen Peyton Manning play, things like that, right? When people think of players in your regard, they think of players that have you know, people have already made it in the world, right? Once you go pro, you made it. Um, so what made you seek knowledge of like financial literacy? And then also, um, what would you say to those people that you think that have already made it? Like, what would you give them advice? Like, oh, did you actually make it? Is it easy? Is it tough? But as far as that goes, like, what do you seek, or what made you seek financial knowledge?
um, I'll start off. I'll start it off, Jim. But I would say that what made me seek it out is once again you hear all these horror stories about different guys, you know, burning through their money, and you obviously that's their teammates, and you see them, you know, go through their troubles, and you're like, man, I really don't want to do that, and with knowing that it has to stop. It's gonna stop eventually. You know, I'm not gonna always be fast, big, or strong. It has to stop, and the money's not gonna, you know, you're not gonna get those, you know, hefty paychecks. So that just honestly just kind of scared me, and you know, to making the better decisions, you know, and just like Jim said, you know, saving on expenses and like, you know, using 10%, you know, you can use 10% off on things, and if you keep doing that multiple times and then you keep saving money that way, just like you said, $100 can go a long way, but if you do it multiple times, it starts to stack up. And I mean, just like you said, that was just huge for me, you know, just to see that. And I guess I was just always trying to get those like different income streams in, because I would like I was inspired by guys like Elon Musk, like other entrepreneurs like that, and you know, just trying to follow in their footsteps and just at the end of the day doing the right thing.
Yeah, Jim, I mean, in your experience, I guess, what made you kind of seek a financial literacy knowledge and things like that with your career? Because I know you were traveling and stuff, and so a lot of people when they're traveling, they don't have that time, right? So you maybe didn't do it during your trips or during your seasons, but probably did it after. So what made you go through that though?
Okay, so good questions, really good questions. So the first thing I'll say is, you know, tennis and football are extremely different, and I don't know football, and I would love to. I'll just tell you about tennis. So, and very few people who get paid big contracts, you know, at the beginning. It's very small numbers. So a lot of players don't have the financial cushion at the beginning of revenue coming in from tennis racket sponsors or clothing sponsors. So with that being said, you know, it's hard to say you've already made it when you don't have those income streams coming in. So I think football is a little bit different. You know, the guys who are drafted, they get contracts right up front. So Deiontrez, that's your cue on that. Let's see, your question about let's see, learning. You said about when did I learn? While I was on tour or after? I think we always keep learning. I certainly could have studied more and learned more while I was traveling. Some of my friends were doing it more, and that kind of got me a little bit more interested. But I guess, you know, two things there. I was fortunate that the ATP, the Association of Tennis Professionals, right when we started on the tour, they had an ATP university to help to teach players a little bit, you know, about financial literacy, about how to handle media, how to answer questions, and you know, in other areas. But those were the two big ones. So you know, that was very beneficial to. You know, the more you get exposed to things, you start to pick up things a little bit more, and perhaps as you learn more, you get more interested. So that was a big plus. And when we were talking a couple of days ago, I was saying about how it's become even more common now for people to study and take courses while you're traveling. Or right now, I know that since there's a break, there's more time for those athletes to study and learn. And I know that ATP just signed a deal with a company called Coursera. I was looking it up, that they provide, courses, and it's a partnership with ATP. So those are things that continue to help the players learn and prepare for after their sport.
Yeah. I mean, amazing to hear. I mean, there's not a lot of leagues that are taking initiative for actually educating their players. I know basketball is doing a little something with the high school players trying to get straight into the league, which they stopped doing that, but now they're trying to refocus that branding and stuff. But that's pretty cool how ATP is doing that. But kind of piggyback starting off of last question. I know both of you guys are following your dreams. At least when I talked to Jim, he was following his dreams. I know Deiontrez, I mean, your website, man, that is amazing. I have a cousin who's a lot about photography, videography, and man, dude, your website's amazing. It inspired me. I read your about page, and man, I was just like, there's no way, man. You don't want to expect an NFL player just to take on this industry. And Jim, same for you in the real estate industry. We talked a little bit about it a couple of days ago. But I mean, you guys are following your dreams and aspirations at the current moment. So could you elaborate more on how you got into this industry, and how do you apply the fundamentals of finance into that industry? Because I know both of you guys, are doing well. So how do you do it?
I think the three biggest words that I've kind of always went off of is, restraint, accountability, and discipline. And that applies for finances too. For my company, it's one thing to bring income through that, and it's another thing to bring income through my football, and just being able to show restraint. Okay, yeah, I do have all this capital, but do I really want to go out and spend it basically all my hard work on really nothing? And just that in itself made me just kind of inspired to just learn that much more about finances, because it becomes just a lot, and if anything that you don't really know that much about is uncomfortable. So what I would say to other people who are trying to go in the same footsteps is, don't be afraid to stop learning. Just continue to learn, and it's become comfortable with being uncomfortable, because that is how you're going to grow the most.
Yeah, for sure. Jim, like I said, we talked a couple of days ago, so I kind of know a little bit about your story, but the audience, we have around 50 people mark right now on here, but a lot more on Facebook Live. So what do you have to tell them about your dreams and what you've accomplished so far? But how does that financial literacy play a role in what you're doing? You know what I mean?
I really like what Deiontrez said about try to get comfortable being uncomfortable. That really makes a lot of sense to me. Is if you're pushing yourself and you're trying to develop, that you're putting yourself in new situations, and that is how you can really break through and create some more growth, which is what we're all looking for. So real estate, it's been a family, something my family's interested in. Once I stopped playing, I started learning about real estate in my hometown, and so that's been certainly a blessing. And one of the nice things about real estate that we were talking about before is you can see it, it's tangible. So I like that aspect. And my understanding is, and I'm not an expert, but I think real estate tends to be more of a consistent and gradual growth means, where it's doesn't fluctuate as much as the stock market. So I think that's kind of nice, depending on your risk level. So what I was more interested in was law school. So I went to law school, and during that time I kind of got a little bit more interested in estate planning. So I kind of saw how my family was doing things, and learning from that, and learning what I learned in school. So I got a little bit more interested in that, and I'd like to pursue that a little bit more. and just two other things. My family owns a tennis club, so it's been good for me to be involved in tennis still. And I can use the business and finance aspects to learn from that and apply that moving forward.
Yeah, of course. A little sidetrack off those questions just a little bit. Could you guys possibly just go over real quick, Deiontrez and then Jim, how you guys got involved, or how you guys heard about FinMango, or Scott? Like, how was this possible for each of you?
I was introduced to FinMango actually playing volleyball with a good friend of mine. His name is Scott. He works for you guys. And he kind of gave me the rundown after he spiked the ball on my face, and we just kind of we just kind of talked about it, and he just gave me the rundown on how everything is ran, and I was like, man, that's pretty cool. And I believe he was living in Ohio, and this was actually in Denver when I was playing for the Broncos, and I kind of talked to him about that, and we just hit it off. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. What about you, Jim? How were you able to meet Scott, and how were you able to connect with him?
Yep, I got to know Scott through tennis. We were playing in a local tournament, and it was we had some time to talk to each other before and after, and then we went out for a bite to eat one day, and it was a pleasure getting to know him and learning about his passion for helping people, not only in our community but throughout the state and country and throughout the world. It's been a pleasure to get to know him and and to learn about his big projects here.
Yeah, of course. And then while we're on that segue, I mean, we also have, I think you guys already developed some fans on here too. We have Allison Butler that's asking you guys, what mistakes did you guys see other players doing that you were able to learn from or lean away from? I mean, in some cases, you can't always learn from something. You could always have to remove yourself from a situation, right? So what were some of the mistakes that you guys saw players doing in your own sports? Deiontrez, go ahead for me.
Spending money on things that gives you short-term happiness. For me, you always have those guys. Like I said, there is a lot of money, to be spent, and some guys, rotate cars out like it's crazy, and they come in with the jewelry and the clothes, and I've never been like a flashy guy, but I feel like, a lot of guys spend a lot of money just to keep up with the trends, and and that's just short-term happiness. And what I've learned about that is, if I acknowledge that short-term happiness and really realize, okay, yeah, that would make me happy right now, but how would I be feeling? I mean, how would I feel about it later? So then that forced me to think about like the long-term happiness, like the goals and stuff, like investing in my 401k or putting money so I can get a good pension plan or something like that, So.
Right. I mean, humble beginnings lead to humble endings, and so even something like you said earlier, Deiontrez, the get comfortable being uncomfortable. I feel like everyone just loves that quote, and I was like, we got to make it into a T-shirt ASAP. Jim, what about you? What have you learned about, or learned from and leaned away from when you saw like players in tennis, whatever they're doing?
Perhaps it was just me and perhaps it was the people who I was hanging around with. I didn't see a lot of people spending unwisely. I didn't see it. The guys pretty much lived within their means, and maybe when they were home they were doing different things. But when we were on the road, we were pretty much staying in the same hotels, and generally you couldn't really tell how they were spending their money. So I couldn't. From what I could see, they were spending wisely.
Yeah, I mean, every sport is different. Some people either spend lavishly, some people don't. But also, it comes down to the mentality at the end, right? Strong mentality prevails all, is what they say. And I mean, you guys have that mentality. I mean, you guys are doing fine, and you guys are still humble about your beginnings too. I mean, But another question who we have is, how has your time on the court or field helped you in your financial pursuits, such as a mental game? So like I just said, the mentality has a huge part of it. So how has your time on the court made you let's say, either mature or pursue a better financial game? Because I know it's kind of like a similar question, but I mean, I can read it one more time real quick. How has your time on the court or field helped you in your financial pursuits, such as mental game?
Well, I feel like if you are worried about your finances, that's going to leak into your real, like your life. You know, you're going to bring your stresses from home to your work, and then that can affect your play on the field. If you're constantly worried about, you know, bills or things like that, it's going to cause you to become like more stressed out. Like, and that's just going to affect you in life in general. So. My game, you know, like I said, I always refer to those three words. It's just discipline, restraint, and accountability. And like I just keep reminding myself of that and just holding myself accountable. So I won't leak my, you know, finances out into my on the field or, you know, my company. So.
Right. Jim, what about you?
So I guess I had three thoughts. There are a lot of ups and downs with sport and with tennis. You know, there's a winner and a loser in each, first and second place in each match. So you got to get used to, you know, dealing with both. So that, you know, that certainly happens that certainly happens in other areas of life, you know, whether it's in school or whatever profession you're in. So I think that definitely applies. You know, trying to be resilient when you have setbacks. And there was Deiontrez talking a lot about preparation, and there was one quote from, I think it was attributed to Andre Agassi about you know, just trying to get one day better, and you know that applies, you know, and no matter what, and anything you're trying to accomplish. So that's really all you can do, and just try to, you know, be get one day better in every possible way.
Yeah, of course. I mean,
hold yourself accountable. There you go.
Oh, exactly.
That's the phrase that he was using that triggered that thought for me.
Exactly. Kind of going back to Deiontrez, in your opinion, do you think awareness of financial education can solve many of the pressing issues we face in the world today, whether it be athletes or even regular high school players, or professional athletes or regular high school players aspiring to become athletes, such as like there's some problems like facing debt in 5 years after retiring, or whether it be causing an injury which ruins your career potentially at the end. Do you think awareness of that financial education can solve many of these issues?
Oh, definitely. I feel like, you know, as long as you're aware on, you know, your spending habits and how you allocate your money, then that can, you know, help make better decisions, you know, everyday decisions, you know, like whether it's choosing to get a, you know, cup of coffee from Starbucks every day, that adds up, or going out and with a night of friends every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and that adds up. So it starts making you become basically a better person because you can think about those things and you're educated. Okay, yes, I can afford to do this, but how would I sit in the future? Like, how would that affect me? You know, like I said, it goes back to me saying, you know, with the short-term happiness and the long-term happiness, you just kind of have to balance that out and have that discipline to, you know, just, you know, to just go the other way.
Yeah. And also, just a little bit about that. When do you think people should start learning or even like self-teaching, or seeking help in that financial area? At what age should they start doing this?
I think as early as possible. Like for me, I didn't come from a background that's was really just financial conscious, I want to say, and like no one, like I didn't learn it in high school, so I had to seek out that information, and I feel like it would have saved me because, you know, everyone goes through those growing pains, and, you know, everyone, like I know I was. So I spent money where I shouldn't have spent, and I feel like that could have been, what's the word I'm looking for? That could have been, I just could have went the other way if I would have been educated on an earlier age, you know, to make better decisions. You know,
the outcome could have been a little different or something.
Oh, 100%. The outcome could have been, well, you know, way different.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, of course. And now, I mean, redirecting towards Jim now, I mean, we've already mentioned, you have that sort of real estate background within you, whether it be the law side or the management side, as you're part of a company currently. Where do you see that industry fit into finance? And how important do you think that area of finance is for people? Because, I mean, a lot of people aren't a big fans of intangible assets, like stocks, options, and corporate bonds and things like that. So where do you see the industry you're in fit into finance? And what kind of advice you guys, I guess, you would have for those people that don't prefer stocks and things like that?
So, perhaps I think a lot of things, I think what might stop people from initially getting into it is thinking you might need a whole lot of money to get started. But what I found is if you can put down a down payment, then you might be, and if your credit is good, you might be able to get a loan for the remainder to make your first purchase, of a home or a property that you're not living in. So I think getting started and getting out there and trying to make the first purchase, would be very helpful. So that is my, that's my take on that. I think, and then the more you do it, the better you get. And if you can find someone who who's doing it, they can be a serve as a mentor, and that would certainly help you.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
I've been very fortunate. I've got a sibling an older brother who's in the field, who's an attorney, who's been doing it for many years. So I'm fortunate that I can learn from him, and also my dad was very involved. So
right, of course, yeah. And I mean, we actually have a couple more fans that are trying to ask you guys questions. If you're ready, I'm gonna shoot real quick. But they're saying, how do you think we approach the mindset of student athletes? Since a lot of them come from backgrounds with low or no wealth training, the bling bling lifestyle is so in their face, or they become the bank for their family and posse. How do you think we should approach the mindset of those student athletes?
Deiontrez, you or me?
I'm trying to find that question right now. You think you could read that again for me?
Yeah. So the question is, how do you think we approach the mindset of student athletes? Because there's a lot of them that came from backgrounds with low or no wealth training. So like in terms of no financial literacy training. And like all that lifestyle in their face is like, oh, if you make it to pro, there's all this bling bling lifestyle, or they become the bank to their family. So how do you think we should approach the mindset of student athletes? So I think this would be important in like a perspective of a coach or a teacher or something like that. So what should you say to them, or what should you train them on, or how do you like keep them humble and things like that?
Joe, I'm gonna let you take this one. I'm gonna read it again.
Yeah, that's fine. So I'll do my best to answer it. I'm gonna answer it like this. So I've seen some programs. I've been fortunate to be exposed to some programs that try to help, maybe some kids from a less, from more of a disadvantaged background. So when I was in college, there was a program called East Palo Alto Tennis and Tutoring. So it helps to get some disadvantaged kids involved in tennis and also education. So trying to get people involved in the sport, and also as the kind of the carrot, and also teaching them at the same time, and teaching discipline and encouraging work ethic. I think so. Trying to combine the two can really be successful. And also there's a program in Cleveland, Ohio, that I was fortunate to be involved with, very similar tennis and education, and they're very popular also in Washington D.C. and in Florida. So trying to combine the two and get clearly education and helping to get people involved at a younger age. And if you can help, if you can put those together, you're gonna make a big impact.
Right, of course.
I think it goes back to saying that you just need to self-educate. Like, I don't necessarily think that wanting the bling bling lifestyle is a bad thing. It can really turn out to be a good thing if you use that in the right way. And if you educate yourself about finances, it can be motivational. Like you say, okay, I do want this. I do want this car, so let me work towards it. Let me work my tail off so I can be able to afford this and live within my means, to provide for my family. I don't necessarily think it's, I think that's a negative connotation that, you really shouldn't spend money on those things and this, that, and that. But I just like I said, I just think it can be motivational if you do it the right way, with self-education and things like that.
Yeah, that's a great question. There's also another question from Jordan Rosedale, and it's saying, what do you say to the young athletes struggling with funding their love for the game?
I was put in those positions oftentimes growing up. I would say that there's a way to do it, to do everything. I guess for me, I didn't really have the money growing up to pay for coaches or things like that, or to get gym memberships and or things like that. But nowadays, it's like I said, it's so much easier to educate yourself. With YouTube videos and things like that, and there's no amount of money in the world that can afford that you can buy time. Like, you cannot buy time, and that's all it takes is, you don't really necessarily need to pay for coaches or anything like that. You just need to use that time and do the right things to fund your love for the sport. I guess for me, I couldn't afford for the coaches, so I would go out there and practice on my own on the weekends instead of going out with my friends, or do push-ups or do at-home workouts. It's a way to do everything if you just educate yourself the right way and spend that time to invest in yourself.
Right, of course. And then, Jim, what about you? What would you have to say to those young athletes struggling to funding their love for the game?
Deiontrez made some really good points. Everyone's situation is going to be different. You try, and you do the best you can with what you have. And he also makes some other really good points. There's more information available now, which is helpful. But as we know, coaching is super important. Tennis is an expensive sport, especially when you're young. Coaching is important, court time, rackets. But then when you get involved in the tournaments and you're traveling, hotels, you got flights. So it's one thing once you get into college, and if you're fortunate enough to be, on a college team that's going to pay for that stuff, that's great. But the time between 12 and college, it's very expensive. So you got to do the best you can, try to find sponsorships, and do the best you can, be as frugal as you can.
That club time is expensive too, huh?
Yes. Yeah. Tennis is definitely an expensive sport, but
of course.
There's definitely some organizations out there that try to help, and the United States Tennis Association, is certainly aware of that and is really trying to get more kids involved at a young age, and then trying to, help the ones who, show the most promise.
Right. And then kind of backtracking off of that question as well, you guys mentioned that there are things to do. There are people to rely after or look back on and speak of as your mentors, right? To even get some of those mentors. You don't have to pay them, but just seek help from the people you aspire to be. I know you guys kind of hinted at some of those things, Deiontrez and Jim, both of you. So Deiontrez, you can go first, but who kind of motivated you the most? Who is your person? Or what kind of dream inspired you to motivate yourself? Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Really my grandmother and my family, my grandmother and my sisters, my mom. My grandmother, she kind of taught me to be prideful of my last name, and whatever I did, just know that I'll be representing my family, and that was bigger than myself. If I go out and do bad things, then that's gonna represent my family as a whole, and I just kind of always had that on my back, and that in itself just inspired me to want to do the best I can do, and just be that example, because I'm the oldest of three, and I wanted to, to show my sisters, the right way and how to do things, how to really like do things,
Right. And you also, I mean, I think off of your the website I've seen, you have your family of your own, right? You have a son.
Yes.
How can you talk about what kind of a mark you're trying to leave for him, or what kind of things you're trying to teach him? What kind of you talk a little bit about that, like how you're being a role model for him, or just little things like that.
Oh, definitely. And just like I said, I just want to show him that, just about patience, accountability, and like it's kind of weird because, like 5 years ago, you never think you'll be in a situation, but it truly teaches you to, you really want to lead by your actions, and setting a good example, because he's a future, and that is just holds you accountable even more,
Right.
He's
Yeah,
awesome.
of course, of course. And then Jim, what about you? Who kind of motivated you, or what kind of dream motivated you to motivate yourself, I guess?
Great. So I would say my parents were very strong, encouraged me quite a lot, more helped to motivate me. I'm also the youngest of six. So my siblings, I had the chance to watch them and see them and how they, conducted themselves and how they were successful. So they helped to inspire me. And I was also very fortunate. I had a lot of opportunity growing up, and access to tennis courts, access to coaches. So I think part of that helped spur me on, because I knew I had a chance, and I didn't really have any excuses. So I think that helped motivate me. And then I guess another thing, I think when you have some success, it helps you to work harder to achieve some more success. So I think those were the
Yeah.
areas I can point to.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, like I said, we have a lot of audience today. I mean, they're all your fans and things like that. So I mean, we have another question. It's a little bit more on the personal side, but it's more of just kind of saying, did either of you guys ever worry about like injuries or negative financial impact that you guys would have? Like, would that be like something you keep in your brain or head or plan for, or do you guys ever foresee that or anything like that?
Oh, definitely. Like I'll give you an example. I believe like my my third year in the NFL, I tore my Achilles in the off season, and anyone that knows anything about that injury is really it's tough to rehab from, And on top of that, in the NFL, if you get placed on IR, which is injury reserve, you get half of your salary cut in half. So you get hurt, you make half of what you are going to make, And if anyone takes half of their funds and out of if anyone to just halves any of their salary, that's going to be a huge impact regardless of how much you make, And when that happened, it just kind of put things in forefront, like, hey, man, like I need to kind of like this thing may be coming to an end, and I need to be put in a better place so I can, not worry about finances in the future. So that let me like reach out and like look at reasons, like educate myself on how can I make it stretch as long as I can. So.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, of course. I mean, an Achilles to breaking or tearing an Achilles, you don't have that explosiveness anymore, right? And then also when teams looking at like that record, like, oh, he had a broken Achilles. Like, what do we do now, right? Do we even go ahead and give him a contract or not? So it is pretty tough. I agree. I mean, I don't know from personal aspect, but you would, right? And so, what about you, Jim? Do you have you ever thought about like, or even like in your head, just as a side thought, did you like think about an injury or anything like that, or how would you plan for it?
Injuries are always you're always concerned about your health, as an athlete. Um, Clearly football and tennis are very different. No one was hitting me, so it was less of of a constant threat or a constant concern. But tennis players have more overuse injuries. You hit a lot of balls, so you get some tendonitis, and thankfully, if you take some time off, and you're younger, you heal quicker. So we're always taking care of our bodies, but very different sports, and just with some rest, the tennis players tend to heal.
Right. No, of course, of course. I mean, we even have your fans trying to recommend you guys books to read. A book is called Slow Getting Up by Nate Jackson, and say Austin Butler says it gives you crazy insight on what NFL players put their bodies through, and how teams or front office handles them. I mean, I don't know if Deiontrez has read it. I mean, have you?
Oh, I haven't, but I know how the front office treats you after you get injured.
No, for sure, for sure. We're kind of ending. We have like around 9 minutes left. I mean, we can open up to Q&A for the actual audience that we have now. So, I mean, if you do have questions, just drop them below. If time permits, we'll ask Deiontrez and Jim. But there's one question I kind of had, and it was, this was kind of my last question, but like, what kind of steps have you guys taken in respect to building a financial strategy for yourselves? And some of the things that you've learned along the way that you would like to address to the younger generation, because there's a lot of younger generation just kind of looking at you guys right now in the lens of even this video, but like also there's a lot of people looking up to you, like Deiontrez, you said your son, right? Jim, you have other people in your family looking up to you as well. So what kind of, I guess, financial strategies have you guys built for yourselves?
Like I said, I think I went, like, after that injury, just put things on the forefront of on things I needed to do to see about how can I spread my money out and just to live off of. And I think recently looked into investing in the stock market, just not letting your money just sit and not make money. Just stock markets and anything like passive income. And just looking at more ways to expand on those things, So like the stock market, my company, and football. I still get paid for football and invest into your 401k and your retirement plans,
Right?
Things like that.
Exactly. I mean, you see LeBron James investing into his health, like around $1 million or something. Like, I don't know how it's crazy amount of numbers. I mean, it kind of speaks volume to even our last question that we had, right?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. And then what about you, Jim? What kind of things have you learned along the way that you would like to tell our audience and also the younger generation looking up to you?
Great. I think I've got 3 things. And I'm pretty sure that I read this from, Warren Buffett. He said, invest in what you know. So to me, that makes a lot of sense, or understand what you're investing in. I'm hoping that we're going to have a good size investment here in the tennis club that my family's involved with. So I'm pretty comfortable with that. So that's an example for me. Just talking to a friend, and he was explaining, trying to figure out what you want to do in your career. And, it's kind of for me, it's a gradual process. And for him, it was a gradual process. You kind of learn that you want to do more of this maybe, and maybe less of that. So as you go through, you can figure out what your strengths are and what you're good at, and try to figure it out for yourself. And then the other thing I was thinking of, I remember reading, as I was coming to the end of my career, I was reading, about with thoughts on what I was going to do next. And I remember someone writing that it took them like 10 years to figure out what they were doing and to get themselves on a path that they were comfortable with. And when I read that, I was thinking, wow, that is way too long. How will that ever, I'm not that patient. But, to be honest, it really took me about that amount of time to get to a better spot. It definitely took me a while. So, for the younger people who are just starting out, be aware that it's going to take a while to get to the point where you want, but do your best to try and enjoy the process.
Right, exactly. And just stay in it, and hopefully something comes out of it. If you work hard enough, I mean, we've all noticed, I mean, you guys worked hard enough and you guys got to the place you wanted to be, correct? Yes, maybe along the way you guys made some mistakes, but I only push you to be better and harder and mentally stronger, you know what I mean? So, I mean, one last question I kind of had for Deiontrez as well, was kind of why photography? What kind of led you towards photography? Because I know Jim's story, and also I'll ask the same question to Jim if time permits. But Deiontrez, why photography? You don't see a lot of people going into the field after you go through NFL or even XFL or like just leagues like that. Why photography?
I never liked being the person in front of the camera. You know, it always kind of made me uncomfortable, and I just like the whole creative process. You know, I worked for a high school broadcasting television show that we had to, you know, create an episode every Friday, and just seeing the creative process and getting a team together just to, you know, to show to the, you know, our whole high school was just so much fun for me. And I, you know, went to college and took a couple classes for that. And when I graduated, I always told myself that if I ever get to a point in my career that I can invest in myself and get the gear and that I would. And this is something I've always wanted to. And in 2018, that's why I started my company.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you even teach your son how to hold the camera and stuff like that right now, or no?
Oh yeah, definitely. He loves taking pictures on the phone. I have like 1 million on my phone of just me walking around the house, just cooking or, you know, just doing something, and he's just snapping away.
For sure, you guys are gonna have to send some, so maybe Scott could put it on the website or something for sure. I mean, closing remarks real quick. I would love to thank you guys on behalf of Finn Mango. I know Scott's in here, so he's definitely said Jim still whoops him in tennis, and you, I mean, Deiontrez, he said you still have the hops and maybe be able to spike him. So, I mean, Scott's in here now. Maybe he's got something to say. Scott, what's up?
Yeah, I just want to say, thank you so much for joining. And Kishan, amazing job speaking. I think you might have a future in public speaking. But definitely thank you guys for coming. And yeah, definitely Jim Thomas completely destroys me in tennis. It's not even close. When I win a game, it's because he just gives it to me and he wants to be nice. And then in volleyball, I was lucky. I was able to play with him and with Demont. And it's just so cool because like we had this really arrogant team that came on. And they thought they were the best thing in the world. And actually, it was me, Taylor Fair, and Josie, and we had no idea. Actually, we had no idea he was a professional football player at the time. But, you know, we just went out there and played with them, and we just beat them. Like, I don't know. You can talk about the story. It's hilarious.
Right, for sure. And I know me and Scott were talking about the other day, but, like, if we're running volleyball, you're back in Columbus, like, let us know. I played volleyball in high school. I mean, Scott still plays. Things like that. So I mean, we can run it. I'm not gonna lie. Jim, plays tennis, and he's actually looking in the other room. He's in the other room looking at our conversation right now. So he wants to run at tennis too. So I mean, I'm just saying, come to Columbus. Our casa is your casa as well. So let us know for sure. Thank you guys. And I mean, I know our audience really loved it because I mean, I guess you're probably like LinkedIn is probably blowing up right now. Your Instagram, everything's blowing up. But for sure, thank you guys. Much love. Hope to see you soon.
My pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity.
Sure.
Thank you guys so much.
All right.
Thank you guys.